All right, great. Guys, we are live on the interwebs. We are live at the Clearbanc office for Wednesday One Thing. Awesome, cool. So for you guys online, if you haven't seen Wednesday One Thing before, Wednesday One Thing is a really great opportunity for someone here at the Clearbanc office to educate the wider team on really interesting trends that are happening in retail and e-commerce, in technology more generally. We share it for you, really, so bring you guys into the conversation and see what we're doing here and see what's really exciting here at Clearbanc and the things that we're thinking about. Today, the articles that I'm sharing and the news stories sort of range a while back, maybe a bit from last week, and then float over to this week. And the greater theme that I want to talk about today is traditional brick and mortar retail dead? Has anyone gone to a mall recently? Mall? Some people go to a mall. Does anyone buy a lot of things in store? Yeah, okay. So if you can't see that at home, a lot of people did raise their hands. What's really interesting though is when you go online and you shop at your favorite brand online, like what do you notice that's different? Like how is that shopping experience different for you? This is actually like a discussion.
So much more convenient.
Okay, convenient, faster. Anything else?
Cheaper.
Yeah, what's the difference between your online experience versus your in-store experience?
There's a little bit more fear that what you buy is not going to fit you. You send it back, but at the same time, if you don't have to leave your apartment.
Right, so there's a convenience aspect of you can get things you want, but there's this maybe fear that it might not perform the way you expect. So that's like an experience that you can't really get just online. So I think, yeah, those are pretty much the trends we see, which are that, online, very convenient, generally cost effective because you're cutting out middlemen. But the trade-off is that, there's this fear that you might not get exactly what you want. You're going to have to deal with online, are you even talking to a human on the other side? And that really leads us to the first article, which is, let's just open this up. Rent the Runway is finally addressing its customer service issues. So Rent the Runway is a subscription service that allows you to have a subscription to really any dress you want. They deliver the dress to you and you get to wear it for a bit. You send it back when you're done. Everything's copacetic. I've never used Rent the Runway. I don't think I'm the demographic they're sort of aiming to get. But as you can imagine, they might have, I probably look very lovely in a dress. I've just never used them before. So sort of what sort of Randy was saying, which is that, you might get the dress. It might not fit you properly. You rented this for a specific occasion. What do you do now? You have to return the dress. I can imagine this causes a lot of customer experience headaches. And that's really one of the things that happens when you scale up. You're going to have more customers. You are going to have more customer service issues. And that's really just, I think, part of the game. When you have a brick and mortar store, it's much easier to return something. You get to see in-person interaction. They get to say, hey, I hear you. This is what we can do for you. And I guess the experience right now for a lot of people, especially with these scale-ups, is that once you do this at scale, you're going to run into more issues. And that's kind of understandable. So Rent the Runway did this thing that I don't think a lot of people are used to doing, but they actually apologized. They said, hey, we're really sorry. I believe they did IPO or they're on the verge of IPOing. And that's something that's very scary for a company to do, which is to apologize and say, hey, we really screwed up on this. The question is, though, what are they going to do moving forward to actually get better? I think they outlined probably in that email that they sent customers how they're going to get better. But you can still imagine that, as you move forward, that's always going to be an issue. So that leads us to our second piece of news, which has to do actually with one of our current clients. Wait till that loads. Boom. Apparel subscription service Le Tote is going to buy Lord & Taylor. Does anyone know what Lord & Taylor is? Lord & Taylor, it's a brand owned by Hudson's Bay Company, which is a brick and mortar retailer. So Hudson's Bay is obviously, we in Canada know, it's one of our biggest brands in Canada. And they operate Saks Fifth, they have Hudson's Bay flagship stores, and they also had Lord & Taylor physical retail stores in their arsenal. Don't know if anyone follows too much financials, but Hudson's Bay is sort of this mammoth that isn't doing so great at the moment. But what they are really great at having are these really amazing crown jewels of stores. So, Queen at the Eden Center, that's like a very expensive property that they actually own. And when you have these amazing properties, what you actually can have is a really good customer experience. People can come in, they can complain to you if they want, they can return things. And I think for Le Tote, this actually is a great opportunity because as we sort of understand, retail isn't really dead, brick and mortar retail isn't dead, but it is evolving. And I think they're a pretty comparable company to Rent the Runway in the fact they are a subscription service for clothing. And this is an interesting opportunity for them to not only branch out with who they can access, but really having these good locations as not just distribution centers, but customer service like beacons that they can access their customers. This is actually a very big deal. Hudson's Bay is sort of really strategically focusing now more on just Hudson's Bay and just Saks Fifth. So them selling Lord & Taylor, especially to like a direct-to-consumer company, it's kind of an interesting thing to happen in the industry. But you know, anything can happen. And I don't know any of kind of, I don't know any precedent of this kind where a direct-to-consumer company is buying actual physical retail stores from an established brand. That's kind of interesting in that space. Again, this leads into the next article, which I wanted to talk about, which has to do with physical locations. All right, great. So you're a direct-to-consumer brand that just bought your first brick and mortar locations. Now what happens when you're Toys R Us and you've really filed for bankruptcy a couple of times, your stores aren't performing well? This is the kind of landscape that you're coming into, which is like, you know, you have to have a brick and mortar location, but brick and mortar is kind of going through a lot of synthesis right now. They're changing a lot. So this was a really interesting sort of transition that I saw, which was that, I forget the company that does this. I think it mentions in the article. Let's scroll down a bit. Oh yeah, Beta. Company's called Beta. And what they've essentially been tasked to do within Toys R Us is to create better retail experiences. So Beta is a company that essentially does just that. They actually go in and they reinvigorate retail spaces to make them feel more like Apple stores. And then I think that's sort of the direction we are sort of heading within retail. One of the best sort of experiences I've had actually with retail recently is if you've ever gone to Yorkdale, there's actually a Dyson store. Dyson is a vacuum cleaner. And when you go in, it's like a totally experiential store where you can pour like sand on a carpet and scoop it up with a Dyson mop. You can like see how different things fall on your rug and you can clean them up. And that's really the experiential side that sort of Randy was talking about, where like you don't know how something's going to function if you just buy it online. So these are sort of the omni-channel approaches you can have where you have a really amazing in-store experience it's like a focal point of your buying behavior, and then you go online and you go and purchase that object because it's more convenient, because it's fast, and you already know what you're getting. So all in all, this is to say, you know, you have to, I think with direct-to-consumer, the sort of landscape we're in right now is that all these companies are trying to scale. Whether you're a small company and you're selling t-shirts online, or you're, you know, a big Le Tote company and you have subscriptions that you have to keep fulfilling, the focal point is the customer. If you have a situation like Rent the Runway was in, where you're pissing off a lot of your customers and you don't have a great customer service experience, you're going to have to issue giant apologies. And for companies that want outsized returns, maybe they're venture backed and they're going to IPO, those things cannot continue to happen. So whether you're a big company or a small company, putting the customer at the center of the experience is so crucial. So that's what we learned from the Rent the Runway experience. Le Tote showed us that, okay, it's great that you have this online store, but really thinking about the omni-channel approach, where how are you going to interact with your customers on a consistent basis? Are you at the areas that's convenient for them to access? And what happens post-sale? Like, how are you continuously engaging them and putting them at the center of the conversation? And then what we learned from Beta is that something we all knew, which is that brick and mortar retail is not going the way of the dinosaur, but it needs to evolve. So companies that have this, not necessarily you have to be an Apple store, but having a really slick in-store experience for your customers when they actually get there can actually even reinvigorate the oldest brands like Toys R Us. So we'll be seeing Jeffrey the Giraffe very shortly back again, but in a more, you know, revamped way. I can imagine, you know, kids playing with their Fortnite toys on a table, or having like an experience with augmented reality at some table that a Toys R Us genius maybe has set up. So this is all to say, you know, when we speak to customers, they have their own vision of how their company is going to progress. Obviously, we talk to them because they're our customers, and we obviously have to give them impeccable service no matter where we are. And they're servicing a greater industry where they have to be putting the customer forefront of their knowledge. So cool. That's the Wednesday One thing. Appreciate you guys at home tuning in, and I'll open it up for discussion. I have about 5 minutes here. What are you thinking?
Yeah,
Riley, yeah.
I think it's awesome. I think a great example too of that like omni-channel direct-to-consumer then transitioning to an in-store experience is Warby Parker. Warby Parker, as a lot of us know, a huge direct-to-consumer brand. One of the first brands to take on the direct-to-consumer glasses market, which has kind of been blowing up, and we're seeing a lot of kind of look-alike brands coming out of that. And they've gone for that sort of Apple Store, really slick retail experience. And what's really cool about it is when you go into the store, there's actually no checkouts. There's no cash.
Oh, yeah.
There's a bunch of people wandering around with phones, similar to an Apple Store. And you can go in, you can try on glasses, and you can actually have someone help you. And instead of getting a printout of what you looked at or having to write it down on your phone or think about it, they'll actually tee it up for you in your email, create you an account on Warby Parker, and when you go home, you can log in and just check out right away, or just see all the things you were looking at,
right?
All the frame styles, the prescription options that you have, really streamlining that direct-to-consumer experience through an omni-channel store.
Yeah, it's true. I bought glasses at Warby Parker, and it was actually really funny. So I went into this store in Toronto, and I have a doppelganger, Maury Rubin, in New York. So when I went to check out, they said, "Oh, Maury Rubin, you've actually been here before. Like, how do you like your glasses?" I said, "Are you talking about the Maury Rubin in New York?" Like, no, that's he. I'm sure he looks really great in those glasses, but I'm a different one. Like, let's set up a new account. And I went through the whole system, and yeah, by the time I got home, I had already my glasses prescription there, my glasses ready to go, and I just had to check out, and I was good to go. So it's a great example. Anyone else? Thoughts, comments? Last best thing you bought at a store? Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, just coming from like the bank side, even on like services, brick and mortar is changing in this model. So like one of the things that like RBC's done is create this platform, for example, called My Advisor, where you go and you speak with the advisor, you talk about your finances, and then when you go home, you yourself can see what we discuss, play around, do all those little things, and gives you the ability to, again, you get that advice in the store with the person, but then when you go back, like you can go and you can make changes yourself and do whatever you need to do. So it's like taking that idea of like, all right, I have to see someone, but then when I go back, I can do it myself. And it builds into that idea of like integrating online with retail.
Yeah. So what Aaron just said, I don't know if it picked up on the mic, is that he used to work at a bank, and they have something where you can talk in bank to whoever you're talking to, and all that information gets sent home with you, and then you have the opportunity to personalize it yourself and switch it up. So that's, again, a great example of, you have these brick and mortar stores, like how can you leverage them to their fullest potential even when your customer leaves? Really great example. Okay, I gotta run. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you guys for spending your time with me, and we'll see you guys next week. Cheers.